Hello, everyone. This is Dania Esperanza. Esperanza means hope in Spanish. Welcome to my channel, Hope Speaks. I am here today to talk a little bit about my mission and why I am here. I have learned more recently, which is great information because I wanted to write a book right before the pandemic started. And I pretty much have had a lot of turbulence, a lot of anxiety. I actually experienced a nervous breakdown, which I will share that as well. And it actually propelled me to learn so much more about the nervous system and how it affects our brain. So I actually, uh, it's a very difficult thing for anyone to share their story, especially when you're in public and you are able to be seen by um, God knows how many people if it does go viral. My mission is not really to become famous. I would love to share my story to heal and to help, because I believe that many of us think that we are alone in this journey when we go through trauma, when we have nervous breakdowns, when we have to go to the hospital, when we need to talk to a therapist. And I would like to dispel the whole mental health. I'd love for people to talk more about their brain, talk more about their emotions, talk more about their minds, because countless wars have been fought throughout centuries with like very little communication or no communication. And I believe if we communicate with each other about our day-to-day trials, tribulations, stress, our issues within ourselves, whether we talk to someone who is a professional or whether we communicate with those who are our loved ones that are like in our relationship. When we have a partner, sometimes we quiet and we don't express the things that are going through our minds because we think that someone's going to call us crazy. And nowadays there's so much narcissism and gaslighting, and that's a form of torture. And many of us are being manipulated and tortured by our partners. Even some friends do gaslighting. Parents and even our own children can become those people who we love the most, who hurt us the most. So in this particular video, I would like to share somewhat of personal and deep rooted childhood wounds that were caused by my parents and were also a product of my grandparents, pretty much, because on both sides, my grandparents raised, their children. My father was raised by his mom and dad, and same thing with with my mother. So they went through their trials and tribulations when they were growing up, and this caused them the way that they raised me. And then I understood how to kind of work with that. And now that I am a full-grown adult and I control my home, I control my mind, I control my body, my spirit, it is such great information, because once you go through hell and you've gone through so much, it's really important to share how you did it. How did you become so peaceful, especially through some serious trials and tribulations? Now that we've had the pandemic and we have all these viruses and changes with laws and the government, we tend to have a lot of stress levels come up. In the previous video, these are all pre-recorded, so I had recorded a video about the stress mode and how you can control it. And this is from Dr. Rick Hansen. I read his transcript from his audio book, How to Stress Proof Your Brain. And I beg and plead people to open up their minds and really listen to it, because a lot of people who have religious beliefs don't want to pay attention to the way that we have evolved and the way the brain works. But I believe that this is the engine, this is the machinery that helps us go from day to day and from year to year and from century to century. This is our vehicle, and if you don't get better control of your vehicle, then bad things may happen. Another thing that you can look at it is like your vehicle, your own car. When you have a car, you have a key. You drive it, you put gas in it, you take care of it, you take it to the mechanics. Most females don't really care to learn how to change a tire, or how does the engine work. They don't know where does the gas go in the oil and all of the gadgets of the vehicle. But I am going to teach you the vehicle that you are driving every day and how it works, how are those parts put together, and how can you get a better control of it. So I'm really excited to talk about the brain from 0 to 7 and how we are programmed to become who we are. For example, from 0 to 2, our brain is operating at delta. Delta brain frequencies is like you're in a deep sleep. Any deeper than delta, you can have surgery. When you go from 2 to 5, you're at theta. Theta is uh, like mild sleep, like you're groggy in a dream state, but you're not knocked out sleeping or deep meditation. And then the last brain frequency is alpha, and alpha is pretty much light meditation. And you know how when you've taken like a sleeping pill and you're got kind of like feeling it, but you're not as deep as theta, or you haven't fallen asleep as delta. So when the brain is in this frequency from 0 to 7, you can just imagine your brain when your parents first conceived you started working at that frequency, and it didn't change from like having your being inside your mother's wound. It didn't change until you turned 2. So that's why they call the terrible twos terrible twos. But it's actually because the brain is turning from delta and it is picking up more speed, and it's going into theta. But it's not really like an adult brain. Like my brain right now is not at any of these frequencies because I'm awake. I'm speaking to you. So when you're from 2 to 5, your brain is still like in that daze, not really awakened yet, not really fully, all there. So this is the time that um, the subconscious is being formed. Everything that you was listening to, that you was hearing, if your parents were fighting, if people were having sex in front of you, and people were like, oh, that's just a child. They're only 2 or 3. They'll never remember. They'll remember. They have a heightened sense of sexuality if you are exposing a child that is that young to the sounds of sexual activity or the sounds of aggravated trauma and arguments and fighting. So it is important for us to know how the brain is operating from 0 to 7. So then when we move from 5 to 7, that is the last stage of the subconscious being formed. And that is theta. So theta is also going to cause some traumas. If you see things that you shouldn't have seen, if you hear things that you shouldn't have heard, it will go into your nervous system and it will project as the way that life is. And as you get older, you can draw all those negative aspects that your parents had done to you, or it could even be worse. So it's important to understand how the brain actually develops, how your subconscious is developed, and how is it that you can get a better control of it now, even as an adult. When we go from 7 to 12, those are still our informative years in some sense, because even though the brain is not operating at delta, theta, or alpha, you're still very young. You're still very vulnerable. And at this point, mostly this is when you have better relationships with your parents, with your aunts and uncles, with your friends. And this is where, you're in school and you have teachers and things like that, and they can also influence your future. So remember what had happened to you when you was young in those ages, if you had trauma, and maybe your brain and mind might be operating from those traumas. So we're going to learn how can we reverse that, and we can inject positive affirmations for those who believe in God, the Bible, or the Quran, or anything spiritual is amazing, because you can choose any positive affirmation to your liking. You can go to YouTube and get biblical affirmations, poems, anything that attracts you with the voice, the sounds of the music. And while you're sleeping, you can listen to this, and it will help you wake up in the morning and feel better. But the brain learns with repetition, repetition, repetition. So I would give it a year for you to truly be able to feel and understand and really get it. But at the beginning, it feels almost like a job, but it really isn't. It feels so good. I do it at night. I use my sleep headphones, and I have had some great results from it. So I welcome everyone to actually Google it, ask your therapist, your doctor, neuroscience, and scientists, and just learn more about yourself. Go inside your body. I would love for people to learn more about meditation, and if through these types of videos and this movement, we can also get meditation into schools. We can truly heal the youth, because there is so much trauma out there. A lot of parents, they don't, once they have their children, they don't have a guide as to how that brain is being developed. And we wish we could, because I had to find this information pretty much on my own, to search. And my search has been since I was a child. And this is so cool for me to talk about, because when I was little, my mom and my dad had a very, very traumatic and toxic relationship. It was one of the worst, but I was so blessed to have had my grandparents when they left me in the Dominican Republic when I was just a baby. And my grandparents actually used to talk to me a lot about the Bible. They talked to me a lot about God. And because I was the one left behind and abandoned by my parents, even though they didn't abandon me, they had to leave because of the government there, and my father was in danger of being killed because he worked for the president. So it was important for my father to leave. He had to leave, and if I had a choice for him to go, I would have said go. But the baby of mine does not know that. The child is usually sleeping with both of their parents, and while coming out of the womb, you're used to your mother, you're used to your father, and when they're not there, the brain is like, you're alone. You don't have them anymore. So the people who stepped in was my grandfather and my grandmother. My grandfather left me 7 amazing keys. That is such a great gift, and I have not been able to understand the value of them until more like now. And my grandfather used to tell me that my first father was God, and he was up in heaven, and that Jesus Christ was my brother, and I can always call upon the Holy Spirit. So I pretty much have been trained, and they pretty much put that in me when I was so little that it never left me. I doesn't mean that I've been through the best of things. I've been through hell and back. I was molested by my mother's cousin when he proceeded to rape me. When I told my mother that he had done this, she did not believe me, which went into more trauma. He did that when I was about 12 years old. Then going back into my brain frequencies from 0 to 7, I will say that from 0 to 2, my parents left me in the Dominican Republic. When I was at Theta, from 2 to 5, I went to New York City to live with my mom and dad. And at 5 years old, I woke up to a beating while I was taking a nap. because my grandmother and my mom from my father's side had a lot of turbulence and a lot of they did not like each other. So when I dreamt with my grandmother, my mom heard me, and she came in, and as I was sleeping, she took a belt and she proceeded to give me one of the worst beatings and told me that she could take me out of this life because she brought me in. And at 5 years old, I believed her. So it was a very scary, traumatic experience. Then, when from 5 to 7, the trauma continued because my father, just like was just as responsible as my mother, because my father was usually giving the responsibility of raising the children to my mother alone. And if anything happened to us, it was her fault, not his, which is wrong because emotionally he did not nurture my mother. There was a lot of cheating, a lot of lying, a lot of manipulating, and because my mom saw that within her parents, because her father left her mom when she was young and she suffered through that, she did not want to leave my father. She wanted my father to stay and uh, raise us and help have a life with her children. So she fought long and hard. But when I was 10 years old, I told my mom that I wanted to heal people, that I had heard all of her arguments with my father, and I believed they should get a divorce. And she respectfully disagreed, or should I say, strongly disagreed, and she stayed with my father and kept going back to him throughout many years. And it was a constant roller coaster ride. But it's so interesting how I would say that I was not going to be like my mom. And later on in life, because of the way my brain was operating, I kind of attracted a lot of narcissists. Also, I am an empath. I'm now an empowered empath, but I was a broken empath. I was a very broken woman, and I was a broken child. So most of the men, 99.9% of the men that I dated were very abusive, if not physically, mentally, verbally, and emotionally. Many narcissists, I have so many stories, and it created lots and lots of trauma, which I actually blew up much later in life, which was tragic. But the good thing is that I understood that I am destined for an amazing life, and that the whole thing of trauma is something that can be taken control of. And I started doing the work. I started doing the healing. If I had to cry, I cried. If I had to go to a therapist, I went to a therapist. I pretty much tried everything. I love crystal healing. I love aromatherapy. The holistic way has always been better for me. But there's many different practices that can be done, and you can incorporate pretty much all of them, which is pretty cool because the night meditation is the foundation of my holistic healing. However, during the day, it's great to listen to positive affirmations. It's great to write them down, and it's also a good practice to be grateful. I know that when someone passes, or when you're being abused severely, it's hard for us to find things to be grateful for. However, we have a body, we have lungs, we're able to breathe, we're able to walk with our feet. For those who are not paralyzed or in a hospital, I hope not. But for us, we can walk, we can exercise, we can find things that we can be grateful for. We can be grateful for a bottle of water. We can be grateful for the fact that we can speak, that we have a voice. You can manifest your greatest dreams. And I am so excited to share how I've done it.